Right, we're live. So welcome everybody, lovely to see you, and thank you for coming this morning to see this amazing exhibition that Dale has put together. Some of you have met Dale, and he's from, is it Essex or Suffolk?
I live in Suffolk.
Just about?
Yeah, just on the border of Ipswich and Colchester.
Near Ipswich,
Yeah.
Yes, so I'd like to kick off by asking you, not about this particular exhibition to start with, but how did you become an artist? What's the story behind that?
Okay, at school we have subjects that we study, and some subjects that we have to study, and then there's some that we kind of enjoy. And I went to quite a good school, it was a boys' grammar school in Leicester, and they were quite keen on to formulating your career. And so I was advised to do the subjects that I was good at academically, but as a kind of foil to that, you get to choose one that you like doing. Okay, so at school, everyone had I guess everyone had someone in their class at school that was good at art. That wasn't me. Okay, my early pathway, would have been actually as an athlete. I've been involved in competitive swimming all my life, I still am, and I was particularly good when I was younger, so things were geared towards me. I'll keep swimming because my name was in the local paper a lot with the school I went to, so that was all good, you know. So I was good PR for the school. So there's a wide range of academic activities. Get your O-levels, fine. Always enjoyed art, wasn't the best at it, but I had a great teacher. The art room at school was always the place to hang out. Mm-hmm. It was open, you know, all day. And if it was raining not today, everyone would just go to the art room. And as a young kind of 11-year-old with sixth formers, and they're probably playing, I don't know, Deep Purple and Pink Floyd. So it was a kind of cool place to be. Yeah. And the tutor was cool. It was a guy from Lancashire. I remember all our still lifes were either his desert boots or his cans of beer. So it was cool. So if you're hanging out in the art room, you're cool. So did that. Then it came to A-levels, still doing my swimming. I showed a kind of keenness or an ability to write well creatively. So my tutor said, right, you need to go to university to study English. And I just thought, all those reading lists, you know, let's start all those essays. But again, I did a subject I liked. So I did sociology, because I was interested. I was kind of lured into that. English, because I was good at writing essays. And as a foil to that, let's do art as well. Then my swimming career, it reached the age of 16, 17. I realised that I wasn't going to go to the Olympics. So, I was training really kind of hard up to that point, you know, 4 hours a day. Then almost had a kind of early life crisis that career that was planned out for me wasn't going to happen. Now what are you going to do? Okay, so didn't want to do English. My best friend at school, his brother had just gone to Loughborough College of Art to do a 1-year course. So it's a foundation course, you try lots of different things. And I thought, well, why don't I try that? It's only a year. And I'd convinced my parents that, you know, it was going to be okay. I'd get a job somehow. Because I mean, you know, I came from quite humble origins, so there was always that case of how are you going to make a living? Well, you've got to make a living. So I cajoled them, thinking, well, you know, a year at art school, it's just 1 year, don't worry. And my father said, oh, do they? Because my father was a painter and decorator, and he said, well, do they? And he was thinking, well, the only thing he could relate to is that on site he'd seen people at the end, sign writers. They'd come in, you know, with their kind of, you know, their fine brushes, and they'd always get paid a lot by doing not very much. They came right at the end, and he said, "Oh, do they cover sign writing?" And I lied to him. I said, "Yeah, that's one of the modules, Dad." So a bit of a white lie, but so then I went and did this foundation course at Loughborough, and it was an epiphany, you know. Within about a month there, I realised that all this energy that I put into my swimming career, I could transfer it by some bizarre way into art. Mm-hmm. It was, I think looking back, and this is one of the reasons why I've taught on foundation courses for 30 years, looking back it was about, not necessarily, it was about equipping you with skills, physical skills, but it was a way of thinking about the world. For example, the first day there, we were in this big hall and they had 80 chairs stacked up on top of each other in random positions. They said, just draw that. Okay, draw it exactly. And at the end, I'd done this quite nice drawing, but I remember I'd squashed it to one side, and the tutor came on at the end. He said, "What do you think about your drawing then?" I said, "Well, it's a bit of, I've squashed it." He said, "Yeah, rub it out and start again." And we were never allowed to use anything but newsprint the whole year. So nothing precious. It was about thinking. We'd rotate different weeks. I remember one week we went in there, the tutor came in, and it just, with loads of packets of bin liners, just emptied them on the floor and said, "Right, work with these for a week," and then left the room. And you think, you're 19 years old, you've come from A-level where I'm drawing explosions and battlefields, the stock sort of almost like science fiction, progressive rock album covers. And this guy goes, "Use these." But by the end of the week, people were making amazing things. So I think in terms of being creative and problem solving, that year it literally changed my life.
Nice.
Nothing was ever in doubt that this was where I should be. So that was a great relief as well. I guess the next problem then was kind of almost like keeping this kind of white lie going with my parents. So right, okay, I've done this course, I need to do a 3-year course.
Yeah.
What? You said it was a 1-year course. Yeah, but this leads to that one. And I think by then they twigged on that the signwriting wasn't going to happen, So then I applied to, I did a 3-year course, a degree course, and that was in my hometown, Leicester Polytechnic. And although it wasn't a glamorous art school, I was lucky that it was an extremely well-run programme.
Had a very good reputation.
Yeah. I mean, all my colleagues were going out to Brighton or Edinburgh and things like that. They were more kind of sexy venues. And they couldn't understand why I stayed in my hometown. Actually, I was engaged to be married when I was 19. That's another story. So I was quite lucky that, that the course that I was on. And that was quite rigorous as well. Theirs was more, well, they were quite good, which wouldn't have now, that they were interested in, certainly the first year, in teaching you physical skills. How to draw what's in front of you. So a lot of life room drawing, a lot of measuring, a lot of rigour. And even practical things, like I was just saying to someone earlier that we would rotate different workshops. And it was the week of the printmaking. And the tutor, bless him, was a guy called Roy Bisley. We've all got great teachers and tutors that have changed their lives that go unsung. Roy Bisley, I had 3 different printmaking tutors there, so I was quite lucky. So Roy Bisley said, "Okay, gather around everyone, here's a piece of lino, just nothing cut into it, ink it up with this ink, get a stencil, paper stencil, so that either prints or doesn't. Print that, press the big old press, wallop, there you go, print." And I remember at the time thinking, hang on, show me that again. That's sleight of hand. So at the end, you do that, you get this. And for me, it was magic. It was literally like, David Blaine or something.
One of those moments.
It was. And I said, "Okay, everyone, you're going to have a day of doing this, right? Okay, but we'll have a coffee." And I just got on it. I just started printing these. I mean, the first day, I think I've still got a few. This is 1981. And I did about 100. I just did all these things. It's like, wow, and it's...
So that's like the moment you became a printmaker, really.
I guess so, yeah. And I was just saying to people earlier that I try, even to this day, to keep that magic moment alive. Because printmaking is one of those moments where you try to control it, but at a certain point, it is taken away from you when it goes in the press. Until you lift that paper away, even though you understand it, or after 40 years of using the materials, you think you know your way around it, but there's still that fantastic what-if moment. It can break your heart, And I'm saying, sometimes probably some of you hear me swearing in my studio, because I should know what I'm doing, but it goes wrong. But sometimes you think, wow, was that me? And I think it's quite important to surprise oneself. And that goes right back to that moment in 1981. And I was lucky that I had two of the tutors that were involved in print, and they could see that I was hungry, and I'd taken some of the things I'd learnt from my swimming career about investing time and being rigorous and being patient sometimes, and having lots of energy. I took all that, went into this, and I think my tutors realised that I was hungry, and they kind of fed me. So it would be in case of, sometimes they'd say, look, we've just got some new lino in. Dale, you have first knockings, help yourself, Or they'd lend me their own books, things like that. Just to say, you want to check this guy, Arthur Boyd, you'd like him. And then I remember one of the tutors showed me some of the Picasso line cuts, that kind of fluid line, and which is, when you're 20, that is staggering, and it gives you permission to do it. Yeah. So sorry.
So fast forward.
Yeah.
So that's your journey to becoming a printmaker. Yeah. And in between then and now, an awful lot's happened. You've had all sorts of very exciting commissions and exhibitions. And, maybe you'd like to highlight one or two of those.
Sure.
Before we get onto this one.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of commissions. If we go back to something like 1992, so I was the ripe old age of 30, I was, one good thing about printmaking is that in terms of sustaining oneself, not just creatively but physically, you can disseminate images. So you can work with galleries, and rather than if you're making 2 paintings a year, try and make a living, that's scary. Whereas if you're making 2,000 prints, you might have a chance to sustain yourself. So one of the it was an agent I was working with then. So this was a chap who bought for a collection a big law firm still going, called Clifford Chance. So they had a works on paper collection. And he'd seen my prints, and they bought quite a few of them. And then they were moving to new premises, and they got one of the prints they particularly liked was about so big, and it was a kind of almost like a patchwork of different imagery. And they said, look, we want to commission you to make this, the size of that back wall for our restaurant. Can you do that? I said, of course I can. I'm completely lying. Yeah, I'm thinking, how am I going to do it? Well, I did. And then, so that interview went well, and the agent said, well, how are you going to do it? I said, I don't know. I have no idea. But this is just a great commission. So then he said, well, what about, because it was in a restaurant, and apparently sometimes they had kind of slightly wilder parties. So they didn't want anything under glass. They didn't want to, I thought tapestry, they didn't want that, in case it got, champagne or, ketchup over it. So he said, what about vitreous enamel? I said, I don't know what you're talking about. What is it? So vitreous enamel is, he said, think underground science. So vitreous enamel is the way we can fuse coloured glass onto steel. So it's semi-permanent, it's permanent. So then I said, yeah, that sounds great. So then I was installed in a sign factory in South East London, sadly no longer there, that did a lot of the underground signage. And it was a real kind of bizarre, it looked like a sort of inside of, it's like the inside of a Piranesi etching, or Dickensian. It was falling apart, it was dangerous, it was dirty, it was a difficult place to work in. And to go in there and say, I'm an artist, that's the first thing I learned. You don't go in there as an artist. You don't be a diva in that place. And so I had this tiny corner, and they gave me these little kind of tiny bits of steel to work on. And I gradually learned how to use vitreous enamel. And I made these commissions, which then, about 4 years later, another agent had seen these and put me forward for my major commission, which is still there, which is in St Catherine's Dock, which is about 60 metres long. It's near Tower Bridge. So again, went to the factory. By then, the people in the factory knew me, and it was great because I kind of got them on board, and they would come and find things. If they were laser cutting some signs, the underground, they'd throw them away. But these big sheets of aluminium had beautiful shapes in them.
Yeah.
And they quite often come to me and say, what about this, Dale? Can you use this? So that was great.
Yeah.
And I was there for about 5 months.
If anyone goes to St Catherine's Dock, it's worth going to have a look, because they are quite stunning. If you like Dale's work, you'd like
Yeah, I mean, and they've been there 22 years, 24 years now. We keep getting messages saying, because no areas are safe anymore from redevelopment. And I did a subsequent set of small ones, and they've disappeared. And there's been quite a few close shaves about them being taken down, but they're still there. I think there was some of public art. Is often when it goes up, there's a kind of furore about how much did it cost and things like that. But the test, I think, whether it's been accepted, is the furore that might happen if they take them down. I mean, there's no way they'd dare take the Angel of the North down. There'd be a revolution. But when they went up, it was. I remember seeing a documentary. Gormley said that he knew it'd be accepted when some people climbed on board it and they put an Alan Shearer's shirt on it. That means this is Newcastle. This is a symbol of Newcastle. But at the time, it was like waste of taxpayers' money, etc. So. And the great thing about, and a lot of the processes of vitreous now, we've got a few small ones just in the gallery on the back there. The process of enamelling is, I would say, is quintessentially the same as with my lino printing or my printmaking, that we're fixing layers of information on top of each other. Because it is glass, you can alter it so it's semi-transparent as well. And the great thing about that huge commission, whilst it's great that they say, oh, Dale, you're the guy that makes those lovely line cuts. And you go, that's lovely, thank you. But then you say, well, look at these. This is 60 metres long. So I think it goes some ways towards people hopefully seeing me not just as a printmaker, but as an artist. And they're very fine things, but one of my bête noirs is if people call me a printer. It's these delicate things. A printer is a machine or a person that is employed to print things exactly as they are. So if your printer who was doing the catalogue got the plates in order, they won't have a job. I might get away with a bit of misregistration. It's okay. Because I'm trying to make something that is unique and alive that happens to use print. So I guess, I am a printmaker. It'll be in my small obituary in Leicester Mercury, but I think doing the big scale commissions was great in sort of exploding. That's not the only thing you can do. I think sometimes poor old printmaking as a subject matter, because it is accessible and it's enjoyable, sometimes it can suffer. It's like, out the way, I'm a painter. Or out the way, I'm an installation artist. Okay, you're just a printmaker. And I was talking to this lady here that even within the printmaking fraternity, there were these silly conventions about, who are the gods and goddesses. So it used to be like stone lithography. Yes, I just thought, oh gosh, wow. And right at the bottom, it's your lino cutters, because we all did that at school, and we did it. It's like graduating from shorts to big trousers. Yes, I'm 10 now. I can throw this away. Well, either I've not moved on, or there's something I like about the humble nature of this. It's still relatively inexpensive to buy. It's It's condensed dust from cork mixed with linseed oil. Squeezed, pressed together on a piece of hessian. We started off as a floor covering, so it's quite a humble material. But I like that smell I love about it. It's very one can engage with it very easily. Whereas if you wanted to make a stone lithograph, if anyone's ever done that, you spend 3 years preparing a piece of granite to work on, a piece of limestone, and you end up with the most beautiful surface ever. But it makes you terrified of it. I spent 3 days and I say, well, okay, and now do your art on it. It's like, you're joking. I just keep it as it is. Whereas this, I can cut another piece, it's okay.
So, because that is presumably one of these somewhere. Let's bring it into land so we don't keep people standing for too long and talk about the work in this show.
Okay.
How did this come about?
Okay, so I guess like all of us, we all had the COVID years, I guess they'll be known, and we all coped with them in different ways. Now, for somebody that works, predominantly on their own anyway, some things didn't change. Some things did. Mm-hmm. The things that changed was suddenly, in working, what I need for many reasons is an audience. Now, whether the audience might be yourselves or might be working with galleries, for me it just gives it an edge that I'm doing this. I'm not just in my print studio in Suffolk, is an old cowshed. I'm not just in the cowshed for no reason.
The cowshed is a really nice studio.
So, especially again with prints, if I work with kind of 4 or 5 people, then I can say, okay, let's have an urgency. Let's work on a new series and change stock and just keep it a bit urgent and a bit alive. Now suddenly when COVID came along, and like yourselves, galleries had to really think about what do we do? What future do we have? And I'm thinking, well, what's the point of me making lots and lots of prints for an audience that may not be there anymore? So actually I started to make paintings, which for me are much more introspective. So they were just sort of, when the time element of things is taken away, it doesn't matter if I spend a year making one painting. Mm-hmm. This was in the first lockdown, when we didn't really know where the end was in sight. And so I actually, for the first time in maybe 40 years, I didn't make any prints for a year. Because I didn't feel like it. It didn't, and I thought, well, I can't lie about these things. I'll make the things I want to make. And looking back, that was a really healthy thing for me to do. To spend, it's almost like taking a sabbatical from yourself, or like going back to study. So you clear the decks. I don't need to do the day job. Let's do what I really would like to do. Do these things that no one might ever see them. But in the meantime of doing these mixed media and paintings, then a year passed, and I thought, actually I do fancy printing now. And what had happened, there was this kind of build of imagery ready to go. And I often wonder why personally. My favourite prints are made by people that might be well known for painting, so people like Picasso or Rembrandt. But when you look at their prints, I thought, well, why are their prints so successful? And I think it's because the rehearsal has been done in the painting and drawing. So when you see Picasso in photographs of him in a studio, certainly with his images of him stone lithographs, and he's just got some sort of black ink, and he's just going, right, here we go, look at that, whoa, look at that. And you think, how does that happen? It's because he's rehearsed it. You start seeing a production of a ballet. Wow, these people just turn up and they all move beautifully. No, they don't. There's a lot of time involved in that. We see the performance, we see the end moment. So I've got this kind of logjam of images. So I thought, right, okay, this 12 centimetre square format is, for me, it's very accessible. It can be quite quick. Any technical problems won't occur at this scale. I do work big, as you know, but if I'm working on blocks this big, things can get in the way of me getting to the images I want to make. So this is very, very receptive. I can sit down, I can cut 40 of these blocks. I cut them in a week, and with the mathematics of 40. Yeah. Especially because they're square as well, they can be turned on themselves. Right, yeah. So this particular block, we see that image, the third one with the red dots. So this is this block, but it's been inked up twice and it's been moved around. So, even with these, I've got 3, I'm not a mathematician, but what are the mathematics of 3 blocks? There's a lot before we start getting colour involved. Mm-hmm. So if I've got 100 blocks or 200 blocks, it's fantastic. And I talk about, when I sometimes run printmaking classes, I talk about, the most important kind of conceptual thing to go into this is the 2 words, what if. And this show could be called What If. What if we do that over there? What if we do that? What if we bring that in? What if we bring that in? So I made this sequence of work. So this is kind of certainly in the last lockdown, so that January, and I really, the fire was alight again in terms of my printmaking.
That's when I came to see you.
Yeah,
I saw them
yeah.
all laid out on this very
Yeah.
long bench.
So, and you know, what was interesting, I'd made a previous sequence, and they seemed to happen quite quickly. But so I thought I'll do those again, and in the catalogue I talk about it being the difficult second album. Because I thought, yeah, that's great. Those first suite were great. Right, let's do the next one. So the first 10, you think, oh, I've got these images, I've got some drawings, yeah, straight in. And then suddenly it's like, right, number 15. So although, I mean, in the catalogue, there's a little kind of introduction I've put that, although it's a nice hook to, it probably is, I never timed to do these. I thought I could do these in 100 days. It's probably longer. But I didn't put a stopwatch on them. What's interesting was some of these make themselves quicker than other ones. Deborah was saying earlier about how some of these might be from direct drawings I've got in sketchbooks. Some might be where I'm drawing directly in the block. Some are just working with stencils. Some are quite intuitive. So they've all made in different ways. And I always like working in suites. These 100 you see here today probably came out of about 500. So again, in my working process, I allow myself to take risks. I allow failure. If you're working on 500 to get 100, then you've got 400 to play with. It's okay.
There's about 50 of those failures. in that little rows of pathologies.
But some of these, you'll see alternatives. So whilst these are blocks, I might have different versions. You know, I mean, although these are printed, it's maybe quite unusual. So I don't hardly edition because it takes too much time.
Yes.
I find it. I've tried to edition before, where sometimes you say, I'll do different versions. You know, I might do 5 versions, and you go, yeah, that's my favourite one. I'll make an edition of 30 of those. So you spend 2 weeks editing that, and at the end of it, you go, I've editioned the wrong one. I prefer that green one. Because my decision on a Tuesday might be different from my decision of. And so I just make different versions.
Yeah.
You know, the only time it goes wrong is if 2 people want the same picture. But sadly that's not happened too much. You know, I don't want people sort of like, it's mine. The only occasion it did happen once, I had an exhibition in London many years ago, and there's one American lady, lovely lady, Californian, works in the oil industry, quite aggressive, quite thrusty, and she wanted this picture so much that she actually stood in front of it so no one could look at it. Well, our partner went and paid for it, and people said, excuse me, can I say no? She didn't look at it until she bought it. And it's great, and it's great for me to have these come back together again, because I guess once this show's finished, they'll
won't be folded anymore because
they'll go out after these. So it's great for you folk to see this together, because it's like a sort of one-off meeting. You know, it's a 3-week convention of things, isn't it? And they'll fly off to where their destiny. You know?
Yeah. Brilliant, Dale. Thank you ever so much. Any questions that you'd like to ask Dale about?
Well, it was just one thing I was to say about when you were saying about how you move things around. I was playing golf yesterday, and I'm like Andrew, Previn and Morgan Wise.
Yeah.
I've got all the shots and not necessarily in the right order.
Well, exactly.
And it comes onto that as well.
Yeah, it is that order, yeah.
And it still comes to that you suddenly think I might not be in the right order when you open it. Oh my word!
Yeah. I mean, it's an important thing to surprise oneself and to take those risks. You know, I said to you earlier that I never want to be slick. Yeah, I know this material, but I do want that certain tension to it. You know, and some of these, quite often, I mean, when I teach this as well, I say to them, prior to a next printing session, put your work into 3 categories: those that you like, those you definitely don't like, and then there's that bit in the middle. And sometimes with some of these, you look at them and think, they're nearly there. Dare I do that? And you've got to. Sometimes it takes and say, wow, you know, but sometimes it's like, no. But that's what it is.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to do it, really. You know.
So, anyone else?
That tension, though, is that just for you? Because these are really harmonious as far as
that's nice to say. I think with lots of, for me, when I look at other people's work, if I think it's successful, I think it has got that
Right.
that tension, or that. One can get over romantic about that. I think it might be a struggle or a tension or an edge, or to feel that there's been a dialogue there, a discussion. I think it's important. I think we sense that with lots of art forms, writing or music. That I remember seeing in one of the rooms in the British Library, they've got handwritten manuscripts from famous composers. And Mozart's is just like, very delicate. Bach is like, it's no, he's like scrunched it up, and there's all this kind of resonance with the music, really. And different writers, some people do make it look easy, but I think there is a lot of, there's a lot of time and rigour and yes and no, and chessboarding going on, and lots of negotiation. And I think with these, I have used lino now I've not moved on from lino in 40 years, and I do know it. I guess the tension for me is like, I've got a repertoire, I know what it can do, but to still have the tension with what I'm making is like surprising myself. And again, the lovely thing about this format, you can move it around. And you can say, whoa, now what are you going to... Or it's quite nice, isn't it? Get yourself into trouble. And then think, okay, right, there might be a way out of this that could be really exciting. Because sometimes, we're looking at, when you're working in these three piles, it's great fun to try and solve the ones you really dislike. Sometimes the ones, if they're looking quite good early on, they're the most difficult, because I don't want quite good. I want tear-jerking beauty, It's about the golf thing. It's like that golf putt for £10 million is that big. You can't say, well, no, I'd rather not. Can I come back to that one?
About enough for 50p.
Well, exactly. It's like, you have these moments with these where you think, if they're quite good, you think, well, this is not a boast, but I've got to the stage now, if I ink this block of in a certain colour, and there's a print there, I can actually see that colour on it. I noticed that last year. I can actually, there's a picture can come up. But that's helpful after 40 years.
Years of experience.
Well, 40 years, man and boy.
Yeah.
I just want to say one more thing, is that when I did this show, the last time I had a big show with Chris and Debbie, I tried to find the invite, I couldn't find it. I think it's probably about, in the previous gallery, so it's about 95.
Might be, yeah.
And it was a joint show. And I don't know if you knew this on purpose, with this ceramicist, John.
Oh.
Now, isn't that impressive? It's bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah.
But lovely.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. So it's going to be around for sometimes. So if you want to talk further, we can please do.
Thanks very much.